When I turned Metal Sonic into a superhero for my famous video game Villains as Superheroes episode, I wrote it kind of anticipating that I might end up doing a full Sonic Superheroes episode at some point. I didn't realize it was gonna happen only a week after that video came out. But I put this topic out in a poll and it won, so here we are. And today I'm only gonna work with Sonic characters, or versions of Sonic characters, that I've never used on the channel before. Because obviously I love the core cast of Sonic characters that have, shown up in the movie now. But there's tons of other awesome Sonic characters out there to work with. So let's get into this, shall we? Let's hit like if you want, subscribe if you feel like, but either way, enjoy the show. The city of Emerald Central has its fair share of superheroes, all with their own various tactics and reasons for doing what they do. But for the last 4 years, none have drawn as much attention as the young man who is quickly becoming like a mascot to the city, Sonic. He started his heroing at only 16, but with his remarkable super speed, he's been able to best any foe brought his way. He's been a massive inspiration to many, including a young high schooler named Amy Rose. Though she was trying to get the name the Rose Rascal to catch on. Amy was the biggest Sonic fangirl in Emerald City and wanted nothing more than to fight alongside her idol, and she had a better chance than many. Like a lucky few in the city, Amy had been born with superhuman abilities, an occurrence that some linked to a man named Ivo Robotnik, or his ancestors, possibly having tampered with the city's water sources decades before in an experiment. See, Ivo was a tech genius turned villain, who'd years earlier failed to build a machine to outdo Emerald City's finest hero, then had snapped and instead tried to kill Sonic himself. He'd been arrested for this, but unfortunately, he'd only remained in jail for a few weeks before he simply vanished without a trace. Nobody had seen him in 2 years. Still, regardless of how Amy and others in the city got their powers, many were using them for good, and Amy wanted to do the same. She had increased durability, low-level super speed and strength, and some psychic intuition that could help her anticipate opponents' moves or track down villains on the run. Later in her hero career, she'd even gain invisibility, but this wouldn't happen for some time. Finally, to assist in her heroing, she'd trained with a large hammer that was effective at battering foes without actually doing significant lethal bludgeoning damage. She'd designed it off an old Japanese toy that she'd had when she was younger, and when she struck someone with it, the ends pushed in slightly to absorb part of the blow. Amy had no interest in killing villains, just apprehending them. When she finally felt she was ready, she threw together a costume for herself and went out on some heroing patrols. She'd worked a police scanner into her mask so she knew when crimes were in progress. Her first few free days she could spare away from school didn't result in her seeing any action, but eventually she got a chance to take down a group of muggers, then a few days later stop a convenience store robber from getting away. It was a slow start, but thrilling for her all the same. But her first big challenge came after her first month of hero outings was coming to a close, as a 20-foot tall robot appeared out of nowhere in downtown. It simply dropped through a portal and started smashing cars and tearing up the block. Amy was the first hero on the scene, and despite being wildly ill-equipped to face a foe like this, she fared quite well. She kept it away from civilians and aimed for its joints with her hammer to try and wear it down. After 10 minutes, Amy hadn't been hit once, but was growing tired. The bot was getting close to laying its first hit when it was suddenly slammed in the chest by a sparking blue blur and shot back across the ground. Amy muffled an excited scream as her hero Sonic appeared on the scene. The bot sat up, but it didn't get up. At the sight of Sonic, it suddenly transformed. Its torso opened up and a cascade of fireworks shot out into the air, along with hologram writing. It read, "I'm back, Speed Rat," and revealed a floating image of Ivo Robotnik's face. Amy was anxious, getting a strong sense that this bot had just been a warm-up for what was to come, but Sonic clearly wasn't fazed. Even when the robot continued to transform, its body arcing upwards, turning into a 30-foot tall portal itself. When it finished and whirred to life, golden light shone within it, and through it flew a swarm of drones. They all shot right after Sonic, doing a shockingly good job keeping up with the blur of blue. They all targeted him, so Amy, as awestruck as she was to see her hero in action up close, went for the portal. She hammered at its weak points and it started to rattle. Parts were starting to come off and come loose, so she hammered harder and harder. But she wasn't fast enough to stop what was to come. A massive mechanical hand reached through, then another. A robot, barely fitting through, pulled itself out of the portal. It was a large, rotund bot that stood up into the street at nearly 60 feet tall. At the center of its chest was a glowing green emerald that Amy knew she recognized, though this one looked incomplete, and as though it had been shattered to pieces then partially reconstructed. Amy was so distracted by the bot that she hadn't even noticed Sonic had been captured. The flying drones had gathered around Sonic and shot some kind of stasis beams at him, holding him in place, hovering him right in front of the massive bot. It slowly reeled back its arm, then hammered it forward at a speed nearly as fast as Sonic, blasting into him and punching the helpless Sonic out of the air, sending him careening and smashing through buildings before rolling to the ground a few blocks away. Amy sprinted on after him, and he was barely clinging to consciousness. He couldn't handle this thing alone, so she threw Sonic over her shoulder, then ran him out of there, hoping they could come up with a plan or gather other heroes. She got him a safe distance away, and Sonic came to enough to have a conversation. He thanked Amy for her help, but tried to just run back into the fight. Amy mustered all the confidence she had to stop him. She didn't like trying to tell her hero what to do, but she pointed out to him that the broken emerald in the robot's chest looked very similar to the one at the top of the Echidna Corporation tower. The one that provided much of Emerald City with its own unique source of sustainable energy. If Ivo really had found another of these emeralds, wherever he'd gone for the last few years, that kind of energy source fueling one machine could make that machine near unstoppable. To beat it, they'd need something as powerful. Before Amy knew what was happening, Sonic had grabbed her and sprinted with her right up to the Echidna Corporation building. They shot past security and went right up the stairs and burst into the highest office to see the company's last surviving heir, Nicholas Red Yuta, already attempting to use the emerald for his own countermeasures. Turned out the emerald on top of the building was just for show. In truth, the real emerald had split apart years ago into 7 separate emeralds that could all be harnessed into one machine, suit, or even individual. Problem was, they gave a person so much power that it was overwhelming and had killed the members of Nicholas's family who had tried to harness them within their own bodies. So instead, the Echidna Corp had built a suit to stabilize the power for Nicholas to wear in a case like this attack on the city. But as Sonic and Amy arrived, Red was on the floor, out of the suit and on the brink of unconsciousness. Even with the suit channeling the energy, it had been too much for him, despite him having his own impressive natural abilities. The suit was a bit big for Sonic, but all the same, he ran over, saying some combination of please and thank you and I'll return it I promise, as he suited up. Nobody was fast enough to stop him, and once he was in the suit, lightning sparked all around him. He hovered up off the ground, then exploded through the window towards Ivo's machine. As Sonic shot across the sky, elsewhere in the city, a purple-clad hero was getting a call from the Echidna Corporation. Esper Miyake was occasionally called a superhero, but he thought the term was juvenile. Instead, he preferred being referred to as a ninja detective, as if that was somehow less silly sounding. He was part of a small hero team called the Chaotix, but his usual allies were out of town on work when his services were requested, asking to ensure that the suit Sonic had just stolen was returned promptly after it was used to take down the threat to the city. Esper was often contacted for contract work from the Echidna Corp, so this was nothing new. He tapped a button on the center of his suit and became invisible. Then he shot off for the downtown core, where an explosive brawl was beginning. Esper used a combination of running and swinging to traverse, hurling kunai attached to ropes to pull himself through the city streets. Well on the way to the scene, he considered helping take down the bot smashing up the city once he arrived, but by the time he did get there, he realized he wasn't needed. In the stolen golden suit, Sonic was making very quick work of the machine. Even as it shot a barrage of dozens of Sonic-seeking rockets, the hero simply swirled through the air with them in tow and led them right back to the bot, blasting it full of holes. Other heroes appeared on the scene, but most simply helped any remaining civilians in the area get away. Soon enough, Sonic even caught the arm of the bot, and in one swift yank he tore off the limb, then he spun it around and drove it straight through the bot's stomach. The robot was destroyed. People cheered. Esper was impressed, but remained invisible, dropping to the streets and doing a quick look around, taking in all the information he could in case it would be useful to him later. Turned out Robotnik hadn't even been inside of this robot, so he was still on the loose somewhere. Esper peeked through the portal that was still open before the other heroes shut it, and through it he saw a forest, some mountains, and a weird, slimy green creature shambling around in the distance. He didn't know what to make of that, but he ignored it and made sure to keep a close eye on Sonic, who soon enough told everyone he was headed back to return the suit. So Esper thought this was going to be an easy job. Until a woman in tight business attire with white hair and a briefcase walked up to Sonic and flashed a piece of Echidna Corp ID, claiming to be there to collect the suit from him. Esper knew something was wrong, but stayed invisible all the same and kept watching. Sonic did as instructed, trusting her and handing over the suit to the woman. As the crowd cheered and praised Sonic and the other heroes who had helped, the mysterious woman slipped away, and Esper followed after her. When the woman was only a few blocks away from the crowd, she slipped into an alley. Esper watched as she leaned the suit up against a dumpster and started picking away at it with tools from her pocket. Esper knew he should stop her, but wanted to see where this was going. She soon opened her briefcase, and inside was some folded up machinery. One of the items she pulled out and placed on her head. It was like a set of mechanical bat ears. Once on, she kept picking away at the suit, seeming very focused, until she stopped. She turned her head and looked right at Esper, despite the fact that he was invisible. She smirked, whipped out the other item from her briefcase, and tossed it behind her. It suddenly magnetized to her back and lit up with purple light, a set of wings. She grabbed the suit and her now empty briefcase and shot into the air with both. Esper hurled his kunai and it wedged into part of the suit. He held tight as he was pulled up into the air. The woman tried flying erratically to hurl him off, but he held true, even managing to scramble his way up the rope towards her. Just when he was a few feet away, to his surprise, she suddenly dropped the suit. It and Esper fell towards a building top. He yanked the suit towards him in the air, caught it, and landed as gracefully as he could. He looked back up at the woman, who was now hovering above him. She tore off her business attire, revealing underneath it what somewhat resembled a supersuit of her own, though with torn leggings and no mask. She smirked down at Esper. She then held up her briefcase and said, "Just tell Red if he wants these back to come looking for his good friend Rouge, would ya?" It took Esper a second to realize what she meant, but he flipped the suit over, looked at the chest, and saw that the emeralds that powered it were gone. He tried to hurl his kunai up after her, but she flew off out of reach, quickly vanishing into the distance. Esper snarled at himself. He definitely was not getting paid for this job. Alright, so I know I said this after the Subnautica Superheroes episode and the Skylander Superheroes episode, but I'm definitely into the idea of doing a sequel to this. As usual, it depends how the video does and stuff, if people enjoy it, that kind of thing. But obviously, I'm really wanting to do Sonic in his regular superhero outfit now. If I did another episode of this, I would go back and use some of the core characters in it. Because I'm really into the idea of doing a Shadow the Hedgehog anti-hero, but I used him in the Sonic Dragons episode. Which, by the way, if you're new to the channel and you want to see more Sonic stuff, you can check out my Sonic Characters as Dragons video. Or if you want to see the Metal Sonic superhero that I'd done before this, you can check out my famous video game villains as superheroes episode. But besides that, that's all for today, except of course for ending this video on some kind of positive or uplifting note. And the thought I want to leave people with today is the idea that a lot of people look at their daily life as though it's a battleground. but it's so much more freeing and fun to actively choose to look at your life as a playground. Hope that's helpful to someone out there. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next episode on Monday, which is the Marvel variant community redraw. I'll see you there. Goodbye.